Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week we're taking a look at monsters.
Monsters is a story of a journalist who has to take a rich man's daughter across the border because aliens have inhabited a part of Mexico and US. So Monsters is something that you introduced me to, Andy.
I want to tell you a little story here. There's a young, bright-eyed Andy Harrison out in the world.
Oh God, I remember that one.
He's 19, he's 20, and his friends have convinced him that getting a Cineworld card is a good idea. And when you get a Cineworld card, it's great for the first couple of weeks. You go see everything. And then the months drag on and you end up seeing everything and everything and everything. And sometimes that means watching a lot of crap. And then occasionally you find something wonderful. Now, I went to see Monsters purely because I was seeing everything at the time. And I sat down knowing nothing about this director no one had heard of. I knew nothing about this non-franchise. It wasn't an IP. It had no actors in it that I was familiar with. And I was absolutely floored. I fell in love with this film when I first watched it. Now, over time, 10, 11 years later, plenty more films have been watched. Does it break, my favorite films of all time anymore? Maybe not. But Monsters holds a special place in my heart because not only was it a film that surprised me when I first saw it, it also came along at the absolute perfect time in my life. I was studying film and film theory and filmmaking at the time, and Monsters is not only this wonderful product, this great sort of weird post-monster movie, but it's also one of the most impressive feats of independent film production from a British director ever.
Yeah. Gareth Edwards, for those who don't know, by the way, Gareth Edwards, actually, he directed this, he wrote this, he produced this, right? He did the effects for this as well.
Yep.
He didn't do the cinematography. I think someone else did the cinematography. Someone else did. I know there was a team of two that did the editing.
He shot it.
Is that right? Oh, crap. He shot it as well. My God. So we were on about when you were buzzing to me and going, oh, Andy, you need to watch this. You need to watch this. They went away in this vehicle. They recorded everyone in the scenes in the moment. That they weren't extras. They were just people of that time when they're going through that kind of Mexican city. And they had the vigils and everything. That's real. And a lot of these people, they were real people in the places that they recorded. I think there was 4 different destinations in Southern America. And that just amazes me.
2,000.
No, it would be 5,000. But it's the only option you got. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, you take it or you go with them.
I give you $3,000.
No way. It's 5,000. It's 5,000. But you're not safe.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
You
See you
can spend
tomorrow.
that all in one place.
Okay. I feel very happy about that.
It was something like £500,000 budget, which is quite a lot, but it's not a lot.
Well, so clarity for this, right? £500,000 is the total budget, which includes things like marketing and the final cine prints and everything, and the actual grading touch-ups that were done professionally after they got picked up. The original cut of the film was made. Essentially, what he did was he took a £15,000 kit budget, bought a whole bunch of equipment, a few more thousand for the travel and accommodation. He took himself, he took a sound op, and he took an editor. That's it.
And the actor and actress.
And then he went and got. He was sort of sent some work from Scoot McNairy. He cast him, and then when they were looking for someone to go with them, it just so happened that Scoot McNairy was in a relationship at the time with Whitney Able. So it was perfect, because one of the things that often puts people off from going and traveling for 3 or 4 weeks and shooting a film for an entire month is you don't want to leave your family behind. Well, I'll tell you what, bring your girlfriend with you. And
I like that. I like that because it made their chemistry a lot more believable.
They're so good, and I think the two of them are one of the strongest parts of the entire film. I think they've done a hell of a job in terms of ad-libbing and improvising a lot of their dialogue. Because like supposedly Gareth Edwards just shot hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of this film. And a lot of it is like there's rough plot points, you know, sort of like things they have to hit along the way, as beats, story beats they have to hit along the way. But a lot of the dialogue, especially when they're using the non-actors, is just completely improvised by Scoot and Whitney.
Which, by the way, one of the best scenes for that is when they're talking to the guy who's selling the ferry tickets and then ring and everything. That was that is like if that guy had said to him, like, you know, if you can say this, you can say that. But that whole conversation looked real, and then it was those little moments where I was thinking, but there's only really two actors in this film. Like, what's going on here? How is that like? How is that not scripted? That messed with my. It's so good. It was so good. It messed with my head.
He's brilliant, isn't he? When they were out there shooting, they just didn't have permission to shoot in like 90% of the places they were shooting. They were just turning up, sometimes wearing like low profile stuff, taking smaller equipment with them to try and get away with things. And then they noticed that actually if they turned up with a high-vis jacket on and a massive camera and showed off the boom pole and stuff, people generally didn't bother them because they just assumed they had the right permits in place.
I love that.
You never did that?
Practiced laughing.
Yeah.
There's another part to shout out about this film, just to move on a little bit, is the music done by a guy called John Hopkins. For any fans of Imogen Heap, Brian, you know he's worked with them. And I haven't heard of him before, so I only found out since watching the film. There was some moments in this film where the music just really, we're going about more and more about how music can push a film forward. Visually, this film is, you know, there's some parts that are absolutely beautiful. And the music just went alongside it so well, and just, it was mesmerizing, it was tranquil, it was this perfect electronic addition to this film that's kind of, you know, it's got these natural elements, but it was done with an electronic camera, and it was post-processing with the monsters and everything was electronic. It was almost like this electronic attempt at a very natural looking film, besides obviously the CGI monsters.
Technology drove this film, like
100%.
even in the post-production stages, like when he was cutting this together and doing the effects. As you mentioned earlier, Gareth Edwards was the one who did the effects here. And he didn't use bespoke software. He used off-the-shelf software. He was doing a lot of it in things like After Effects and Photoshop. And at the time, he was shooting this entire thing on a camera called a Sony EX3. Now, for those of you who aren't camera nerds, a Sony EX3 is basically a modification of a ENG-style camera. It for all intents and purposes, it's not a great camera, but he was using a Super 35mm lens adapter to go with it, which was only around because a year prior, the industry had undergone something called the DSLR revolution, in which the whole camera market was completely disrupted by the idea of cheap, like super cheap, high-quality cameras. And without that happening, without all this stuff, without all this lightning just falling into a bottle, Monsters doesn't exist.
It's almost like when you went back to 20 Days Later, and you mentioned about the camera used there, the Sony camera that wasn't necessarily used at the time for that kind of filming, but he used it and to great effect. It's not perfect. It's not 10 out of 10. Oh my God, you can't deny it's you can't deny it's a good film. You can't deny the effort that's gone behind it. You know, similar to Rodriguez with El Mariachi. Great, really great
awesome
film.
And I think sometimes you can do that. You can stitch a bunch of nonsense together. You can stitch a bunch of, like, you know, grabbing pieces here and there together, and you can get something. But what you'll get is something incoherent. And the most impressive thing about Monsters is that Gareth Edwards manages to make something that still has some sort of subtextual resonance. Like, you still get the whole parallels of the war in the East going on. You also get that wonderful little subtext of, like, the parallels of the monsters finding each other and these two characters finding each other. And then he still manages to find time to create this really cheeky little elliptical narrative where it opens with the end of the film, but you don't know that until you watch it on, like, a second watch.
Yeah, that was really cool. I enjoyed seeing that again, thinking, ooh, I forgot about this.
Like, just hats off to this film. Gareth Edwards, the guy's great at shooting stuff. He's got a great eye for things. He's not topped this for me personally. He's like, I think his career has gotten muddied in the realm of Hollywood. But it's a shame. I'd love for him to go back and make something again for, £500,000. I'd love for him to go and make something absolutely tiny budget and stretch himself again. I get that, like, going and making something with no money is not fun and all the time, and it's not comfortable, and you shouldn't have to strive your entire life. But I do think this is the best film he's made so far.
I personally like Rogue One, but, I can appreciate that.
So, there is Monsters. There's all my incoherent rambling about the film and all that nonsense. So you can let us know what you thought of Monsters down in the comments below, or you can hit us up on Twitter, as always. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week, where we're going to change gears a little bit. We're taking a look at Scarface.
Oh, fair play. I didn't know about this, by the way, guys. That's hence my, well played. Good call.
So until then, get watching.